33 degrees at 27 minutes before the hour. You are watching Daybreak on a Thursday morning, and joining us after trudging through imaginary snow is Mike Landers. Mike, the interim director of the Chamber of Commerce in Sylacauga. Mike, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Jimmy Dale. Always my pleasure to be here. I hope that I have something to inform the people with. I'm sure they're like me. I've kind of had cabin fever for a couple of days, so hopefully they'd like to hear what I've been doing and what the Chamber's been doing around town. So we'll talk about that.
Let's get to it.
All right. Of course, as many of you know, I am filling in at the Chamber of Commerce. It was my year to be president of the Chamber, and of course we had a change in leadership on-site management, and that left us with a vacancy.
Now, let me jump in here and just ask this question before going further. Was that a surprise?
No, there had been talk of change, and I think everybody was mutually aware that there could be change, and the circumstances just presented themselves, and it was an opportunity for everybody to take a different approach, Carol and the Chamber of Commerce, and we did that, and so that left us without on-site management, but that's all right. I was available because my work as a lobbyist is primarily, it's not like a 9-to-5 job. Now, I'm about to be very busy because I'll be in Montgomery so much of the time for the next month or so, but still in all, it was a good fit for me and a good fit for the Chamber in an emergency situation. And I'm very pleased because, you know, one of the things I did was I appointed a search committee, and that consists of Dr. Todd Freeman, Bob Carell, who's plant manager out at Omnia, and Linda Hardy. And I thought I got a broad base of knowledge there, and I got folks that are committed to the Chamber. And I'd like to have a permanent replacement in place, but we're not going to rush through the process because we want to be sure we get the best qualified, the most experienced Chamber executive director we can get.
What is the process?
We have, and these are things that we should have already done, but we hadn't done. The early stages of this process are defining the real role of the executive director and creating valid and meaningful job descriptions. The other is that we set up a system of accountability so that we know if our executive director is performing well. And then, of course, once we do that, we have to develop the tools with which to do that. And of course, that's of particular expertise of Todd Freeman, because being in education and being in education management, he has handled so many of these hires and of various employees. So he understands the nature of what tool you need to evaluate them. Once we get all of our process end of this thing done, then we will advertise. And of course, we're not going to just advertise locally. We would love to find a very well qualified person locally, but we're going to advertise through the assistance and a partnership with the Alabama Chambers of Commerce. So we're going statewide with our advertising for this person because we truly want the best person that we can get to be the next executive director of our chamber, because the Chamber of Commerce in Sylacauga is uniquely situated. We have because we're funded partially by the city, we have a particular role that we play with the city, and they have pretty well outsourced so much of the promotion end of city business. That means on events, we're kind of at the front every time, which is where we'd like to be. But, you know, we have a much broader role too, Jimmy Dale, and that can be in the area of economic development. And our members all benefit, and you know this, you're a member of the Chamber, a board member at the Chamber, but all of our members benefit when we bring a new industry to town, because those are new potential customers, they're new employees, they're paying taxes here, they're living here, they're going to school here, they're shopping here, and the Chamber can be a very vital part of any small town, and we want to get it right.
Mike Landers, the interim executive director of the Chamber of Commerce in Sylacauga, and once you hit the ground running, and that's basically what you did.
That's right.
You began to implement some ideas and to kind of make sure that everything was clear cut and what people saw is what they got.
Absolutely, and one of the things that's so important, whether you're in the Chamber of Commerce or whether you're in government, is transparency. And especially, we have more or less 400 members, and those members entrust us in management and on the board at the Chamber with their dues and with the spirit of their business, is what I like to call it. So we want to be sure that we're not only good stewards of their money, we want to be sure that we're good stewards of their trust, the trust they've placed in us. We want to be able to promote their business, to grow their business, to provide information for their business, and that's what we're going to do. And, you know, one of the things that occurred to me when this situation developed as it did, I do not want to hire a new executive director and find that he or she, whether it be man or woman, he or she is in a position where they're behind the eight ball, so to speak. So it was a logical next step for me, and of course, just so everybody knows, I'm not down there taking an executive director's salary. I'm fortunate in that my living is generated elsewhere, and so I'm working for nothing. Now, some might argue that I'm getting paid exactly what I'm worth, and if they want to come and tell me that, they're certainly welcome. That's one of the things we've instituted too at the Chamber, is that we have an open door policy. Member, non-member, come by and see us, come by and look us over. We'd like to persuade you that you ought to be a member, but just come by and talk with us, because we're going to tell you the truth and we're going to tell you what's going on, and if we can do something, we will, and if we can't, we won't.
You know, we had the big ribbon cutting and open house down at City Hall, and you know, the Chamber was sponsor of that. Absolutely,
and when Chris Carden called me and asked me on behalf of the Chamber if we would sponsor that event, and I want to say this, we kind of had a co-sponsor on that, as we so often do. Coosa Valley Medical Center and Vanessa Green helped us tremendously. I can't say enough good things about the Coosa Valley Medical Center, because any time that there's a community event, you can find that they're willing to participate.
Oh, yeah.
But we were so pleased because it told us that Chris valued the visibility and the reputation that the Chamber had. And so when I went down there, one of the things I wanted to talk about in cutting the ribbon, and I was so pleased to see Officer Price there. You know, I believe they said he was
80-something years old.
83, 85, spry as a chicken, and just was so glad to be there. And he cut the ribbon, and I held the ribbon on one end, and the chief held it on the other. And, you know, I'm a believer, Jimmy Dale, if you give police officers and other public service employees good equipment, good opportunities, a safe and pleasant working environment, that it improves morale. And they have a wonderful new facility down there. And there again, you give credit where credit's due, thanks to the city of Sylacauga and their vision and the council's willingness to spend money to do that. It's a wonderful facility, and it's something we as citizens and Chris Carden and his police department should be proud of.
And the citizens of Sylacauga spoke on Tuesday at the city election for the 9.5 mil property tax extension.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that for a minute as well. We at the Chamber looked at that, and of course it's unusual. Oftentimes business interests do not want to sponsor new taxes, and I understand why. You only have to look as far south as Montgomery to see that our legislature doesn't always take care of our money down there. But in Sylacauga, we have such a tradition of the city supporting education. But more than that, this improvement that will be made to the stadium is an economic development issue to me, and I'll tell you why. We have on our northern entrance, Highway 21, which actually is the funnel for northeast Alabama headed south. We have those folks coming into town. Well, they come down 21, they see Nichols Lawson. They see the wonderful renovations that have been done at the high school, and then they look across the street and they see Legion Stadium. Well, she has served us well, and there's so much history and so much tradition there. Kids that went to school at B.B. Comer or Sylacauga High School remember some of the best weekends of their life spent in that stadium. And the stadium was in disrepair. I've worked in the stadium selling popcorn and hot dogs, and water runs over the top of your shoes, and you reach up to maybe touch the popcorn machine, and you kind of jerk back because there's static electricity, and you're thinking, Lord, is this thing going to fall, or am I going to be electrocuted? And the time was just right to extend that tax to rehab the stadium. And
the key is an extension. It's not a new
It's not a new
tax.
It's an extension, but Also, refinancing at this particular time with interest rates where they are allowed the city to save almost $1 million. And more importantly, the Talladega County Board of Education got on board this project with us in Sylacauga, and so they're helping us in terms of cost to renovate that stadium because B.B. Comer uses it. So it's a landmark in town. It's a cherished memory for many of us that spent some enjoyable times there, and it was the right thing to do at the right time to rehab and refurbish that stadium.
Once that thing is done, you know, just like what's happening with Sylacauga High School now, the remodeling of that, it will be state of the art, and it will be an eye catcher for sure.
Absolutely, and it will fit in that entire development. More than that, though, it's part of what I see as a long-term process. And, you know, Jimmy Dale, let me interrupt right here. You know, people have asked me, well, Mike, are you going to be the next permanent director of the Chamber of Commerce? And I can tell you that the answer is no. That is a job that I'm doing. I enjoy the job, but I'm a full-time lobbyist right now. But my real spirit, my servant's heart tells me that I need to be doing something more for Sylacauga. And as we get older, we all like to leave a legacy. Well, I'd like for my legacy to be to have served as mayor and made improvements in Sylacauga. So to those of you that have asked me, am I going to be the permanent director of the Chamber of Commerce? No. Am I going to run for mayor next year? Absolutely, Lord willing, and my health is good. And for those of you that don't know, I've lost 189 pounds.
I almost didn't see you when you came in.
I've got more energy than I've had since I was 30 years old, and so I'm feeling great, and I've got big plans for Sylacauga. And so I'm looking towards the future, and part of this stadium renovation is only a part of what I see as our long-term goals of improving recreational facilities in Sylacauga. You know, the council and the mayor's office, and I'm not casting aspersions at anybody, but we've talked for so many years about a sports complex. It never has gotten done. Well, the council has moved forward with the idea of acquiring property for this. I think that's a good move. I think that 280 is certainly an opportunity. But now when I think of Sylacauga, and you know you and I are close to the same age, but when I think of Sylacauga, I think of downtown. And I know that we can never have all the businesses downtown that we had in the past. But so many small towns allowed all their business to move to the bypass, and every little town now seems to have a bypass. We need to do both. We need to preserve what's downtown. We need to make that more attractive for business. We need to make it business friendly. And then we need to look at the big box stores to go on 280 if they want to come here. But I'm going to tell you something. For those folks that say you can't do business downtown, well, there's some folks didn't get that memo. There's Buttons and Bows downtown, a thriving clothing store. There's Alan and Julie Sanders with their restaurant downtown. There's Linda Hardy with Magnolias downtown. Mona and Billy Carden with their gift shop, the Gift Cottage up on Fort Williams. But nobody, those folks didn't hear that message that you can't do business downtown. And you can do business downtown because people like to come downtown.
Hey, before we go, we're right in the middle of pageant season too.
Oh, yeah, and you know, I have, because Pam's, my wife's involvement with the Parks and Rec Board and her love of these young women that compete in the pageants. You know, the Miss Sylacauga pageant, which occurred this past weekend, the longest running, continuously running preliminary to Miss Alabama, 78 years. And we had a lovely winner this year for Miss Sylacauga. And Miss Sylacauga, for those that don't know, is a closed pageant. That means you have to live and be from the geographical area that's encompassed there, and that would mean Sylacauga, Fayetteville, Coosa County. And our winner this year is Mary Kelly Cantrell, lovely girl, voice of an angel. You know, she sings opera. Now, I'm not the most knowledgeable opera man in the world, but it sure does sound good, even if I don't know what they're saying. And then, of course, we had the Miss Marble Valley pageant, which is what's called an open pageant, and girls from throughout the state.
Now that's just been going on a couple of years.
4
right?
years.
Okay.
And last year, our Miss Marble Valley winner finished first runner-up to Miss Alabama. But we had a wonderful winner this year, a young lady from over in Calera, which is close enough that she'll be able to participate in the Christmas parade and all that. Her last name is Powell. Her family, her father is a minister of music at the First Baptist Church in Columbiana. Met the family, wonderful folks. So we've got two really good representatives for Miss Marble Valley and Miss Sylacauga. Now, the pageant for Miss America comes up in the first week of June, and of course I'll be there because Pam told me I would be there.
There you go.
But the thing I want to remind the viewers is these are not beauty pageants. These young women are so much more. These are scholarship pageants, and millions of dollars is awarded to these young women. But when you see these young women, they're so poised, they're so intelligent, they're so well spoken. They're going to be doctors and lawyers and politicians and leaders of industry and leaders of nonprofits. And what you look at and what you say is, you know, I need to quit worrying so much about the future. These girls are out there. The leadership that that our parents fretted about when we were coming along, it may be natural for us older folks to fret, but when you see these young women,
be in good hands, won't it?
Absolutely. Beautiful in spirit, beautiful in mind.
Visiting with Mike Landers, the interim director of the Chamber of Commerce, and one final thought. I was out on the Fayetteville Highway last week, and I got to looking. I said, wow, look at all this expansion going on out here.
It's wonderful, and I can tell you that we're very lucky in Sylacauga to have the Talladega County Economic Development Authority located here, because it puts Calvin Miller on the ground every day in Sylacauga. Of course, Calvin and Jane live in Sylacauga, but Calvin Miller is an unsung hero to me. Folks don't realize how much work Calvin does. And you know, we can all be ambassadors for Sylacauga in recruiting industry and business. You travel about a good bit, I'm out and about. All you have to say is, think about Sylacauga. At least give us a look. And we have a wonderful publication at the Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber Magazine. And if you don't have one in your home, come by the Chamber and I'll give you one, because it talks about them. And I would be remiss, Jimmy, if I didn't mention the Marble Festival coming up. And Taste of Sylacauga. And that's an event that we sponsor along with Dr. Ted Spears' organization. But the Taste of Sylacauga, I can tell you, short of the Christmas parade, is the most attended event we have. We haven't raised ticket prices this year. It's still going to be $10. And we want y'all to come out for a Taste of Sylacauga, because it showcases the wonderful eating establishments we have here in Sylacauga. And man, there's some good food in Sylacauga.
All right. Mike Landers, the interim executive director of the Chamber of Commerce, our guest this morning. And Mike had announced early on, back several months ago on this program, that he would indeed be a candidate for mayor in the mayoral election coming up next year. And so I just wanted to make sure that Mike got in here, updated us on what's going on with the chamber and the changeover. And Mike, always a pleasure to have you on with us.
Always a pleasure, Jimmy Dale. And of course, you know, I know that folks don't realize that you can actually go take a nap sometimes after you ask me a question, because I don't ever stop talking.
That'd be all right.
So, but I appreciate y'all having me, and it's a pleasure.
Okay.